Hello everyone, I'm Santiago and today I'm gonna be testing UGREEN 2 on Steam Deck thanks to Bandai Namco for providing a code of the game. So this game releases actually on Thursday, but if you have the Ultimate Edition, you can play it right now. Steam Deck compatibility is basically unknown at the moment. Valve has nothing to say about it. What I can say about it is that it's UE5 and the previous game, UGREEN 1, was actually UE4 from 2019, so it's been basically almost 7 years since the first one. Alright, so after a couple minutes of shader compilation before starting the game, which is a good thing that they have that in the menu, we go into the graphics, and by default the game is at 800p, far draw distance, TSR 60%, very similar to quality upscaling. We also have DLSS and FSR. For some reason, DLSS is selectable on Steam Deck, despite not having an NVIDIA card. It doesn't seem to be doing anything. I tried using it and it does nothing on the Steam Deck. And on quality, the game defaults to high. So we're going to see how it runs with the default settings, and then we're going to start tweaking it down and see what it looks like. Alright, so what does the game look like? Basically 20 FPS with the default settings. And well, very blurry. And we have that UE5 look. I mean, Nanite and Lumen. Not sure about Lumen though, but yeah. Let's actually make the game play on a lower setting because we're at 16 FPS. So the default settings, nah, not doing it for me. So we go into System, Graphics again, and we're putting this on near, the draw distance. Then the render scaling, 50%, this would be performance upscaling. On quality settings, everything on low. Except in shadows, I want to show you something very funny. So low, 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 and low. We go back, apply. Okay, so after the settings apply, it looks something like this. And it's reloading assets, so I highly recommend you restart the game, but this is just to show you something. So yeah, it doesn't look as bad with medium shadows and everything on low. I mean, it does look worse, obviously. But if we go to quality settings and go for low shadows, it basically disables all shadows and it still runs bad. So yeah, the lowest settings, just due to the fact that shadows are on low, it removes shadows completely. The lighting is gone. It looks like an early alpha state something, which I find hilarious. But just to be fair with the game, let's restart it because we changed every setting, and well, the VRAM is basically, and the RAM is maxed out. So right after a game restart, again on the lowest settings, I also dropped the resolution scale to 40%, so we're below what performance upscaling would be like. And staying still is 30 FPS. Again, staying still. But as soon as you start doing anything else, well, good luck. Let's get to this bonfire. So let's get into combat. Again, even just running around maxes out the CPU. The GPU though is not being used to its maximum potential. As you can probably notice, it's dropping below 1000 MHz. The GPU at its best can do 1600 MHz. If you don't know what that means, don't worry. It just means the frequency can be higher. That means better performance on the GPU side. So what I'm trying to say here is that the GPU can go up to 1600 as long as it has enough power to do so. And by that I mean the APU, which is the CPU and GPU in one die on the Steam Deck, can do a maximum of 15 watts. And within those 15 watts, the GPU and CPU have to share that power. So here, since the CPU is being pushed very hard, it cannot give the GPU enough power to use its maximal performance, to say it in some way. So the maximum performance on the GPU is not being tapped here because the CPU is using that juice to basically make the game work. You can force a higher frequency on the GPU, but at that point you get CPU limited. So that means that you're not getting better performance in any way by tweaking settings like this. This is the lowest settings at 40% resolution scale. And obviously, I mean, on a Steam Deck, it's not meant to play new UE5 games like this one. There's been quite a few UE5 games that run well on Steam Deck, and by quite a few I mean some. Our Graders is a great example, but that's just a well-running game all around. But this is one of those games that runs bad even on PC. I tried it on my high-end PC, a 4090, 64 GB of RAM at 6000 MHz and 9950 X3D CPU, a very powerful PC, and I was struggling to hit 60 FPS, so that should tell you something when it comes to how this game performs. And I mean, considering it's a UE5 game, graphics are not so great, even on the highest settings, in my opinion. So in comparison to the original game, this is less of a corridor when it comes to the levels. This one is more like, maps are more open. That's what the developers said that they were aiming for. And you can notice, especially because, well, UE5 is more meant to be open world. All the technology they showed was to have very open maps with nanite and lumen. That's kind of what they were aiming for. So at the end of the day, this is one of those bad running UE5 games that in my opinion doesn't justify the performance with the visuals. But again, that's my opinion. I'm going to show it to you on PC as well in the coming hours after this video is published. But what I'm trying to say is I don't expect the Steam Deck to do well in a game like this, especially when it comes to a bad running UE5 game. So this was expected to me as soon as I played it on my PC. I mean, if it runs bad on a high-end PC, on Steam Deck there's no chance. And the settings are very lazy. I mean, turning off shadows, I mean, nothing against that. But we get like 6 FPS more by turning off shadows, which is hilarious if you think about it. So to continue, let's do frame generation with lossless scaling. Now we're playing with lossless scaling with 2x frame generation. Let me log the GPU clock. But I'm doing this since you guys always ask about it. So we're forcing the GPU to 1100 MHz, so the CPU has some room to spare. And here we go. This is CodeVein 2 with lossless scaling. Input lag is noticeable. And there's some artifacting at the edges of the screen, which is pretty normal when it comes to frame gen from a very low frame rate. We're getting 60s with drops into the 40s. That means 30s with drops into the 20s, basically. And as you can see, since I starved the CPU from power by putting the GPU at 1100, I get stutters like that, CPU related. So yeah, I increased the GPU clock in order to be able to have a consistent performance with frame generation. But unfortunately, that means the CPU suffers. So it says 60 to 40, but technically we're playing at 20 to 30. And input lag is noticeable and there's artifacts, but the game looks smoother. The problem is the stuttering. When the stuttering happens, it's more noticeable because we're duplicating every frame that is displayed, including the ones that freeze when we get the stuttering. But again, if you want to do this, it's possible. You just have to be happy with the lowest graphics. Let's push it a bit higher, because why even try this without having at least shadows on the screen? So let's put shadows. So at least we have some lighting. But as you can see, the GPU performance is affected very significantly. So we're into the 40s, but that means that we're into the 20s. And they're still stuttering, so meh. Alright, just to show you, again, CodeVein 1. This is on native 800p. There were no upscalers at this time. FSR, I think, wasn't embedded yet. But this is obviously Unreal Engine 4. This game is 7 years old at this point. Visually, of course, is behind CodeVein 2, obviously. But we're playing at native resolution on high settings. You can go lower if you want 60 FPS. Personally, I'll just try to get stuck with maybe a little bit lower settings. What I'm trying to show you here is that you can still play the original if you're interested in this franchise. And once the second game happens on Steam Deck 2 or something, or maybe you have a high-end PC, you can continue. Is this the best game ever? No, not really. This is basically Gunnar anime Dark Souls. I call it a Dark Souls Lite, to say it in some way. And this is one of the most demanding levels, that's why it drops into the 40s. On the first few levels, I've been looking at it into the 60s. So if you want me to do a proper optimized settings video on this game on Steam Deck, let me know. And as you can see, I'm not paying attention. But anyway, this was like, yeah, when every game tried to be a Dark Souls-ish, a Souls-like, to say it in some way. Maybe that still applies today, but this one was closer to what a Dark Souls would be, to say it in some way. So anyway, this is more of a corridor in comparison to the open world of Code Vein 2. Open world-ish, way more open areas. But as you can see, you can, yeah, play the original with a few tweaks here and there. It's decent enough, it's playable. So let's get back to the second game. This was just to have as a reference. And yeah, it does have shadows, for those of you guys asking. So would I recommend Code Vein 2 on Steam Deck? No. Right now the game runs horrible even on my high-end PC, as I said before. I do not expect poorly running UE5 games to run on Steam Deck. UE5 games in general, I don't expect them to play on Steam Deck, let's be honest here. The hardware is not powerful enough. Some UE5 games that are well made when it comes to optimization do run on Steam Deck decently enough, so you can actually play them, but this is not one of them. This one runs horrible. I highly recommend you play the original game instead, Code Vein 1. I showed it to you a few minutes ago, just to show you what's the difference. It's more of a corridor Dark Souls Gunnar anime game, the first one. This one tries to be an open world, or at least more open locations with UE5 visuals. And unfortunately, I think they didn't put enough effort when it comes to optimization, which is lately the theme with UE5 games in the last few years, which is unfortunate because the game is entertaining, at least, but I cannot really recommend it on Steam Deck, even with frame gen and tricks and all that. I might try config file edits like I did on Expedition 33, which helped a lot. Maybe that fixes this game. But we shouldn't have to do this. So anyway, thank you guys so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did taking a look at this, which I found hilarious. Again, play the original, at least in my opinion. That's what you could do with this franchise, at least right now on Steam Deck. And yeah, I'll see ya next time. Bye guys. Thanks for watching.